Welcome back, everyone, to Road of No Mercy. It's David here again. How's your day going? To save time, let's jump straight into the main topic stories from the everyday lives of bikers. If you enjoy the video, please like, share, and subscribe to support us. Thank you.
The knife buried itself between Megan Sullivan's ribs before she hit the ground. She didn't scream. Combat medics don't scream, they calculate. And in that split second between the blade entering her flesh and her knees buckling, she calculated that the man behind her, Cole Reaper, Harding captain of the Hells Angels, would have died instead. Blood soaked through her apron. The bar went silent. Cole caught her falling body, his hands pressing against the wound, his voice cracking for the first time in 20 years. Why did you do that? Her whisper came wet with blood. Somebody had to. Before dawn, 300 bikers would surround the hospital, and this town would never be the same. Subscribe now. Comment your city below. Let's see how far this story travels. The knife came fast. Megan Sullivan had exactly 1 second to process what her eyes were telling her. 1 second between seeing the flash of steel and making a decision that would change everything. She was 28 years old, blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, tired eyes from working double shifts, hands that had seen combat in Afghanistan and now carried trays of beer and burgers at the Rusty Nail Bar in Cedar Falls, Oregon. Nobody special. That's what she told herself every morning when she looked in the mirror. But in that 1 second, something inside her moved. The man with the knife was coming from behind the pool tables. Young guy, twitchy, eyes that screamed meth and bad decisions. His target was the man in the corner booth, the one everyone in Cedar Falls knew by reputation, but never looked at directly. Cole Harding. They called him Reaper, captain of the Hells Angels. Megan didn't think about the leather vest, didn't think about the rumors, didn't think about the fact that this man controlled half the county and made grown men cross the street to avoid him. She just saw the knife. The tray left her hands, glass shattered against the floor. Her body was already moving muscle memory from years of combat training, taking over before her brain could catch up. She threw herself between the blade and the target. The impact was fire and lightning all at once. The steel punched through her side just below her ribs. She felt the moment her flesh gave way, felt the hot rush of blood against her skin. Her knees buckled. The world tilted. And then arms caught her. Strong arms, the smell of leather and whiskey and something else, something that might have been fear. What the hell, Mom? Cole Harding's voice was rough, confused. His hands were already pressing against her wound, trying to stop the bleeding that was soaking through her apron at an alarming rate. Get an ambulance now. The bar went silent, 20 people frozen in place, drinks halfway to their lips, conversations dying mid-sentence. The only sound was Megan's ragged breathing and the distant thump of the jukebox playing a song nobody was listening to anymore. The attacker stood there, knife still in his hand, blood dripping from the blade. His eyes were wide. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to kill the biker, grab the cash from the register, disappear into the night. He wasn't supposed to stab a waitress. Danny! Cole's voice cut through the shock. Low, dangerous, the kind of voice that made people confess to things they hadn't done just to make it stop. Danny Voss, I see you. The young man's face went white. He stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a bar stool. Then he ran. The back door slammed open and he was gone into the Oregon night. 3 bikers from Cole's table surged to their feet. Sit down. Cole didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His men froze. She's bleeding out. Nothing else matters right now. Megan's vision was starting to blur at the edges. She could feel Cole's hand pressed hard against her side, could feel the warmth of her own blood seeping between his fingers. Why? His face was close to hers now, ice blue eyes searching. Why did you do that? She tried to laugh, but it came out as a wet cough. Somebody had to move. You don't even know me. Doesn't matter. Her eyes started to roll back. Cole grabbed her face with his free hand, forcing her to look at him. Hey, stay with me. What's your name? Megan. Megan what? Sullivan. Okay, Megan Sullivan. You're not dying in this bar. You hear me? You're not dying tonight. Sirens in the distance. Someone had actually called for help. Megan was vaguely surprised. She'd expected everyone to be too scared of the bikers to do anything useful. The ambulance is coming, someone called out. Cole didn't look up. His eyes stayed locked on Megan's face, watching her breathing, watching the color drain from her cheeks. "You're an idiot," he said quietly. "You know that a complete idiot?" "Probably. Nobody jumps in front of a knife for a stranger. I've done dumber things." He almost smiled. "Almost." "Yeah, like what?" "Enlisted when I was 19. His eyebrows went up slightly. "Military combat medic, 3 tours. Something shifted in his expression. "Respect, maybe, or recognition. Then you know what a gut wound feels like." "Unfortunately." "And you jumped anyway." "Yeah, well," she coughed again, tasting copper. "Old habits." The paramedics burst through the front door, 2 of them moving fast, already assessing the situation before they reached her. "Step back, sir. We need room to work." Cole didn't move. "Sir, step back. I'm not going anywhere." The paramedic, a young woman with steady hands and zero patience for drama, met his eyes. "Then stay out of my way." They worked fast. IV line in, pressure bandage on the wound. Stretcher in. Megan felt herself being lifted, felt the cold night air hit her face as they carried her toward the ambulance. Cole walked beside him. His hand found hers. She was too weak to squeeze back, but she felt it. Felt the roughness of his calluses, the surprising gentleness of his grip. "I'm coming with her," he said to the paramedics. "Family only." "I'm family." Nobody argued. The ambulance doors closed. The siren started. And Megan Sullivan, the waitress nobody noticed, began her journey toward becoming a legend. Da-da. The ride to Cedar Falls General took 11 minutes. Megan faded in and out of consciousness. The paramedics worked over her, calling out numbers that meant nothing to Cole, but clearly meant something serious based on their expressions. He sat in the corner of the ambulance, trying to stay out of the way, watching the woman who had just taken a knife meant for him. She was pale, too pale. Her blonde hair was matted with sweat, and there was blood, so much blood, soaking through the bandages they kept applying. "Why isn't it stopping?" Cole demanded. "The blade nicked something," the female paramedic said tersely. "We won't know what until we get her into surgery." "She's going to make it." It wasn't a question. Cole Harding didn't ask questions. He made statements, and the world rearranged itself to match. The paramedic glanced at him. "We're doing everything we can." "That's not what I asked." "Sir, I can't." "Look at me." She did. And whatever she saw in his eyes made her swallow hard. "She's going to make it," he repeated. "Say it." A long pause. Then "We're almost there." The ambulance pulled up to the emergency entrance. The doors flew open, and suddenly there were people everywhere, doctors, nurses, orderlies, all moving with the controlled chaos of professionals who dealt with life and death every day. Cole jumped out after the stretcher. His boots hit the pavement, and he was moving, trying to keep up with the gurney as they rushed Megan inside. "Sir, you need to wait here." A hand on his chest, a security guard. Young kid, probably 22. Probably just finished his training, probably had no idea who he was talking to. "I'm going with her." "Sir, only medical personnel beyond this point. You need to let him through." A new voice. Cole turned to see an older woman in scrubbed silver hair, sharp eyes, the kind of authority that came from decades of experience. "Dr. Chen, he's not. I know who he is." The woman looked at Cole. "You're Reaper, aren't you, Cole Harding?" "Yeah." "The girl who came in, she's important to you." "She saved my life." Dr. Chen nodded slowly. "Then you can wait in the family area. It's just through those doors down the hall. 3rd room on the right. I'll make sure someone updates you." "I want to be with her." "Mr. Harding." Her voice was firm but not unkind. "That young woman is about to go into surgery. The best thing you can do for her right now is let my team work. I promise you I will come find you the moment we know something." Cole's jaw tightened. Every instinct told him to push past her, to force his way through, to make sure he was there if Megan opened her eyes. But he wasn't stupid. Causing a scene wouldn't help her. "You come find me," he said, "the second you know anything. You have my word." He watched them wheel Megan through the double doors. Caught one last glimpse of her face, pale slack, barely holding on, before the doors swung shut and she was gone. The family waiting area was small. A few plastic chairs, a vending machine humming in the corner. Magazines from 3 years ago scattered on a table nobody ever used. Cole didn't sit. He stood by the window looking out at the parking lot, his hands clasped behind his back. The blood on his fingers had started to dry. Megan's blood. It flaked off in dark red chips when he moved. He should wash it off. He knew that, but something stopped him. As long as her blood was on his hands, she wasn't gone. That's what he told himself. Stupid, superstitious, the kind of thinking he'd mock anyone else for. But he didn't move toward the bathroom. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out. Jax, what happened? Cops are all over the Rusty Nail. Cole typed back, get here, now. Cedar Falls General. Jax, on my way. How bad? Cole looked down at his hands, at the blood. Bad. He put the phone away and went back to staring out the window. 20 minutes passed, then 30. The clock on the wall seemed to move backward. Cole had been in firefights that felt shorter than this. Finally, footsteps in the hallway. Heavy boots, familiar stride. Jax Turner appeared in the doorway. Blonde beard, road-worn leather, eyes that had seen too much and forgotten too little. Jesus Christ. Jax stopped short when he saw the blood on Cole's hands and shirt. Is that not mine? The waitress. Her name is Megan. Jax moved into the room, keeping his voice low. I heard. The boys told me what happened. Danny Voss tried to gut you and she jumped in the way. That's about it. Why? Cole finally turned from the window. His face was hard, unreadable, but something in his eyes, something Jax had never seen before. I don't know. You don't? Jax shook his head. She just jumped, no hesitation. Didn't even think about it. Dropped her tray and moved, faster than I could react, and you know how fast I am. Jax was quiet for a moment, processing. Who is she? Someone's old lady connected to another chapter. Waitress, ex-military, combat medic. So she knew what she was getting into. Yeah, Cole's voice was rough. She knew exactly what a knife wound feels like, and she jumped anyway. Jax let out a low whistle. That's not normal. That's not, people don't do that, Cole. Not for strangers. I know. So what are you going to do? Cole turned back to the window. Outside, he could see the first hints of approaching dawn. Pink light on the horizon, a new day coming. Whatever I have to. Jax nodded slowly. Then I made us some calls on the way over. Yeah, figured you'd want backup, just in case Voss has friends or this was part of something bigger. Cole's eyes sharpened. What kind of calls? Put the word out, every chapter within 200 miles. Jax paused. They're coming. How many? All of them. The words hung in the air. Cole didn't respond. He just looked out the window, watching the pink light spread across the sky. All of them, because in their world, loyalty wasn't just a word. It was a currency. And Megan Sullivan had just made the biggest deposit of her life. There's something else, Jax said quietly. What? Danny Voss. The boys tracked him to his cousin's place. Millbrook, about 40 miles east. Cole's hands curled into fists. You have eyes on him. Not yet, but we know where he's hiding. Say the word, and no. Jax blinked. No, not yet. She's still in surgery. She's still fighting. Cole turned to face his VP, and his eyes were cold. Absolutely cold. If she dies, Danny Voss dies. Slowly. If she lives, he trailed off. If she lives, then she decides what happens to him. Jax stared at him. In all their years together, through all the violence and blood and hard choices, he had never heard Cole Harding say anything like that. You're going to let a waitress decide? She's not just a waitress. Cole's voice was quiet. Dangerous. Not anymore. An hour passed. The waiting area filled up. First Jax, then Marco and Bones, two of Cole's most trusted men, then others, bikers Cole barely recognized from chapters he'd only visited once or twice. They came in quietly, no patches visible, jackets zipped up over their vests. They didn't want to cause a scene, didn't want to give the hospital staff a reason to kick them out. But they came. By 4 a.m., there were 30 men in and around the family waiting area. Some stood in the hallway, others waited in the parking lot, sitting on their bikes' engines, cold, watching the hospital doors. Nobody spoke much. They didn't need to. They were there. That was enough. At 4:17 a.m., the doors opened. Dr. Chen walked in, still in her surgical scrubs. There was blood on her gown. Megan's blood. Cole stepped forward before she could say anything. Is she alive? She's alive. Dr. Chen held up a hand before the room could react. But it was close. The knife nicked her liver. She lost almost 2 pints of blood before we could stop it. She's in the ICU, now sedated stable for the moment. For the moment. The next 24 hours are critical. If she makes it through without infection, without complications, her chances improve significantly. Cole felt something loosen in his chest. Something he hadn't realized was clenched so tight. I want to see her. Mr. Hardingham, I want to see her. Dar Chen sighed. She looked around the room at the 30 men staring at her, at the barely contained tension in the air. 5 minutes, and only you, the rest of your friends, need to stay here. Fine. She led him through the double doors down a hallway that smelled of antiseptic and fear-past rooms where machines beeped and monitors flickered. The ICU was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that made you aware of your own heartbeat. Megan was in the third bed. Tubes and wires connected her to machines Cole didn't understand. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow. Her blonde hair spread across the pillow like a halo. She looked small, fragile. Nothing like the woman who had thrown herself in front of a knife without hesitation. Cole stood beside her bed. He didn't touch her, didn't want to disturb the equipment, didn't want to cause any problems. He just looked. You're an idiot, he said softly. A complete and total idiot. No response, just the steady beep of the heart monitor. You don't even know me, don't know what I've done, don't know who I am, and you jumped in front of a knife. He shook his head. For me, for a man the whole world says is a monster. Beep, beep, beep. I've done things, Megan Sullivan, things that would make you sick, things that should make you glad you don't know me. He was quiet for a moment, watching her chest rise and fall. But you jumped anyway, and now I owe you something I don't know how to pay back. He leaned closer. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to wake up. You're going to get better. And then you're going to have to figure out what to do with me because I'm not going anywhere. He straightened up. You hear me, Megan? You don't get to die. That's not allowed. You saved my life, and now you have to live with the consequences. The heart monitor beeped steadily, and somewhere in the distance, the first rumble of engines began. By 6 a.m., the parking lot was full, not just full overflowing. Motorcycles lined the streets in every direction. 200 bikes, maybe more, their chrome gleaming in the early morning light. The hospital staff didn't know what to do. We need to call the police, one administrator said, wringing her hands. The police are already here, another replied, pointing out the window. 3 patrol cars had pulled up an hour ago. The officers inside hadn't gotten out. They just sat there watching, clearly waiting for orders that hadn't come. This is a hospital. We can't have... What exactly would you like us to do? Head nurse Patricia Holloway cut in. She was 63 years old, had worked at Cedar Falls General for 4 decades, and had seen every kind of crisis imaginable. Go out there and tell 200 bikers to leave. Someone has to come. They're not causing trouble. They're not blocking ambulances. They're just waiting. Waiting for what? Patricia looked out the window at the sea of leather and chrome, at the men standing beside their bikes, arms crossed, faces hard. For her to wake up, I imagine. At 7:15 a.m., Deputy Frank Morrison finally worked up the nerve to approach Cole Harding. He found the biker captain standing outside the main entrance, a cup of coffee in his hand, staring at the growing crowd of motorcycles. Mr. Harding. Cole didn't turn around. Deputy, this is getting out of hand. We've got calls from the mayor, from the chief, and Morrison swallowed, and they want to know what's going on, what you're planning. Now Cole turned. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but they were sharp, focused. Planning? You've got 200 men out here, more coming every hour. That's not normal. It's loyalty. Cole's voice was flat. You might not recognize it, Deputy. It's been a while since anyone in this town showed any. Morrison's face reddened. Now listen here. No, you listen. Cole stepped closer. Not threatening, not quite, but close enough to make Morrison take an involuntary step backward. A woman is in there fighting for her life. She took a knife that was meant for me. She didn't know me, didn't owe me anything, but she jumped anyway. I understand that, but these men out here, they understand it too. They understand what it means when someone puts their life on the line for a stranger. They understand that kind of sacrifice doesn't go unanswered. Morrison looked past Cole at the bikers, at the hard faces, the tattoos, the vests with the patches that had terrified this town for decades. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "I want her to live." Cole's voice cracked slightly, just for a moment. Then it hardened again. "That's all I want. That's all any of us want. And we're going to stay here until she walks out those doors on her own 2 feet. And if she doesn't," Cole's eyes went cold, "then God help Danny Voss, because I won't." So, at 9 a.m., something remarkable happened. A young man pushed through the emergency room doors, early 20s, brown hair, terrified eyes. He saw the bikers outside, saw the leather and chrome, saw the faces that looked like they'd been carved from stone, and he walked straight toward them. "Excuse me," his voice was shaking. I got a call. My sister, Megan Sullivan. Is she?" Cole stepped forward. "You're her brother, Lucas Sullivan. Is she, please, is she?" "She's alive." The young man's knees nearly buckled. One of the bikers, an older guy with a gray beard, reached out to steady him. "She's in the ICU," Cole continued. "Stable for now. The doctors are watching her." "What happened?" "They just said she was stabbed, that she was in critical condition. They didn't." Lucas looked around at the hundreds of men. "Who are you people? What is this?" Cole considered the question for a moment. Then he reached out and put his hand on the young man's shoulder. "Your sister saved my life tonight. She doesn't know me, never met me before. But when someone tried to kill me, she stepped in the way." Lucas stared at him. "That sounds like Megan." Yeah, a wet laugh. "She's always been like that, even when we were kids, always jumping in front of people, always taking the hits." "Why?" Lucas shook his head. "I don't know. I asked her once after she came back from her second tour. She'd taken shrapnel saving some guy in her unit, nearly died." He wiped his eyes. "I asked her why she kept doing it, why she kept risking herself for people." "What did she say?" She said someone had to." Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to his men, raised his voice so everyone could hear. "This is Lucas, Megan's brother. He's family now. Anyone who treats him otherwise answers to me." 200 men nodded. Lucas looked around, overwhelmed. "I don't understand. Why are you all here?" "Because your sister reminded us of something we'd forgotten." Cole turned back to face him. "That loyalty isn't just about the club. It's about everyone who deserves it. And your sister, she deserves everything we've got." At 11 a.m., Megan's heart stopped. The monitor screamed. Nurses rushed into the ICU. Dr. Chen shouted orders, her calm facade finally cracking under pressure. "She's coding. Get the crash cart." Cole heard the commotion from the waiting area. He was on his feet and through the doors before anyone could stop him. "What's happening?" "Sir, you need to." "What's happening?" He could see her through the window, see the doctors working frantically, see the paddles come out. Clear. Her body jerked. Nothing. Again, clear. Another jerk. Nothing. Cole's hands pressed against the glass, his vision blurred. For the first time in 20 years, he felt tears burning in his eyes. "Come on," he whispered. "Come on, Megan. Don't do this. Don't you dare. Clear. One more jerk." And then beep, beep, beep. The heart monitor found its rhythm again. Dr. Chen stepped back, breathing hard. She looked up and saw Cole standing at the window, his face white, his hands trembling. She walked out to meet him. "She came back." 47 seconds. Cole's voice was hollow. She was dead for 47 seconds. "But she came back." Bars Chen put her hand on his arm. "She's a fighter, Mr. Harding, the strongest I've seen in years." Cole looked through the window at Megan's pale face, at the machines keeping her alive, at the woman who had died for him and come back. "Yeah," he said quietly. "She is." By noon, the number had grown to 300. Bikers from every chapter in a 200-mile radius. Some had driven through the night. Others had left jobs, families' obligations. They came because they heard the story. A waitress, nobody special, threw herself in front of a knife to save a man she didn't know, died on the table for 47 seconds, came back. In their world, that meant something. It meant everything. The media arrived around the same time. News vans from 3 different stations, satellite dishes extending toward the sky, reporters trying to get statements from anyone who would talk. Nobody would talk, but the cameras kept rolling, capturing the image that would spread across the country by nightfall. 300 motorcycles, 300 bikers in leather and denim, standing vigil outside a hospital in rural Oregon, waiting for a woman to wake up. At 3:47 p.m., Megan Sullivan opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was white. White ceiling, white walls, white light. The second thing she saw was tubes, coming out of her arm, her nose, her chest. The third thing she saw was Cole Harding sitting in a chair beside her bed, his eyes red-rimmed, his jaw covered in stubble, watching her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "Hey," she whispered. Her voice was wrecked, barely audible. "Hey, yourself." His voice was rough too. "How do you feel?" "Like I got stabbed." He almost smiled. "Almost. Do you remember what happened?" She frowned, trying to pull the memories together. "The bar, there was a knife. I saw it coming for you, and then..." She looked down at her bandaged side. "I guess I moved." "You moved?" "Yeah. You're insane." "Probably." They stared at each other. The heart monitor beeped steadily. "You were dead," Cole said finally, "for 47 seconds. Your heart stopped and you were gone." Megan was quiet, processing that. "But I came back." "Yeah, you did." "Good." She tried to shift position and winced. That would have been embarrassing. Dying for a stranger. "I'm not a stranger, not anymore." She looked at him, really looked at him, at the blood still crusted under his fingernails, at the exhaustion carved into his face, at the way he hadn't moved from that chair in what was probably hours. "No," she agreed quietly. "I guess you're not." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Harding, she needs rest. You should..." "5 more minutes." "Sir, if can..." "5 more minutes." The nurse hesitated, then withdrew. Cole leaned closer to Megan. His voice dropped low. "There's something you need to know." "What?" "Look out the window." Megan turned her head. It took effort. Everything took effort, but she managed to focus on the window across the room. She could see the parking lot, could see the street beyond it, could see the motorcycles, rows and rows of them, more than she could count, their chrome gleaming in the afternoon sun like a metal ocean. "What?" She swallowed. "What is that? 300 of them," Cole said quietly. "From every chapter within 200 miles. They heard what you did. They came to say thank you." Megan stared at the sea of bikes, at the men standing beside them, at the leather and chrome and history. "For me, for you." "But I don't..." She shook her head weakly. "I don't understand. I'm nobody. I'm just a waitress." Cole reached out and took her hand, gently, carefully. "Not anymore," he said. "Not to them, not to us." Outside, the engines began to rumble. 300 voices joining together in a single sound. Not celebrating, not threatening, just acknowledging. Megan felt the vibration through the walls, through the bed, through her chest. And for the first time since she woke up, she started to cry. "Hey," Cole squeezed her hand. "Hey, none of that. You're supposed to be resting." "I just..." She wiped her eyes with her free hand. "I don't know why I did it. I saw the knife and I just moved. That's called courage. That's called stupid. Sometimes they're the same thing." She laughed. It hurt God, it hurt, but she laughed anyway. "You're probably right about that." Cole stood up, still holding her hand. "I have to go. The doctors want to run more tests and you need sleep. But I'll be back." "You don't have to. I'll be back," he repeated. "And so will they. Every single one of them. Until you walk out of here on your own 2 feet. That could be weeks. Then we'll be here for weeks." Megan looked at him, at this man she'd saved, at this man who should have been a stranger but somehow wasn't. "Why? Because that's what we do." He released her hand and stepped back. "You saved my life, Megan Sullivan. Now I'm going to make sure you get to live yours." He walked out of the room, and outside the engines continued to rumble. 300 bikes, 300 men, waiting for a woman to heal. Because in their world, loyalty wasn't just a word, it was everything. The engines never stopped. Megan drifted in and out of sleep, but every time she surfaced, that rumble was there. Low, constant, like a heartbeat that belonged to something much larger than herself. The nurses came and went. They checked her vitals, changed her bandages, adjusted her IV. They spoke in hushed voices, their eyes flicking toward the window, toward the sound that had become the new normal at Cedar Falls General. 300 bikes, 300 men, waiting for her. It still didn't make sense. Nothing about the last 24 hours made sense. She'd been a waitress, a nobody, someone who worked double shifts and sent money to her brother and tried not to think too hard about the things she'd seen in Afghanistan. Now she was lying in a hospital bed with a hole in her side, and an entire motorcycle club had turned her into something she didn't recognize. You need to eat. Megan opened her eyes. Lucas was sitting in the chair Cole had occupied earlier, holding a cup of Jell-O like it was some kind of peace offering. Not hungry. Megan. Lucas. He set the Jell-O on the bedside table with a sigh. The doctors say you need calories. Your body is trying to heal. My body is trying to figure out why I threw myself in front of a knife for a stranger. Yeah, well. Lucas leaned back in the chair. That makes two of us. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the engines rumbled. They're still there, Lucas said quietly. All of them. They've been there since last night. I know. Do you know why? Megan turned her head to look at him. Her little brother, 22 years old, still had that softness in his face, that innocence she'd spent her whole life trying to protect. Because I did something stupid. You saved a man's life. Same thing. Lucas shook his head. It's not, though. That's what I keep thinking about. You didn't have to do it. You didn't know him. You didn't owe him anything, but you jumped anyway. Somebody had to. That's what you always say. His voice cracked slightly. That's what you said after the first tour. After the second, after you came home with shrapnel in your shoulder and told me it was nothing. It was nothing. Megan, you almost died. Almost doesn't count. It does to me. The words echoed in the small room. Lucas's eyes were wet, his hands clenched into fists on his knees. You're all I have, he said, his voice breaking. Mom's gone. Dad's gone. It's just you and me. And every time you do something like this, every time you throw yourself into danger for someone else, I have to sit there and wonder if this is the time you don't come back. Megan felt something twist in her chest, not the wound, something deeper. Lucas, I know you can't help it. I know it's who you are, but just once I'd like you to think about yourself, about the people who need you alive. She reached out and took his hand. Her grip was weak, but she held on. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just don't die. Okay, that's all I'm asking. Don't die. I'll try. Promise me. She squeezed his hand. I promise. Lucas wiped his eyes with his free hand, trying to compose himself. Good. Because if you break that promise, I'll kill you myself. She laughed. It hurt, but she laughed anyway. Deal. The door opened and a nurse stepped in. Young woman, dark hair, efficient movements. Miss Sullivan, you have another visitor. Tell them I'm not. It's Deputy Morrison. He says it's important. Megan and Lucas exchanged a look. Send him in. Deputy Frank Morrison walked into the room like a man who'd rather be anywhere else. He was in his 50s with a weathered face and tired eyes. His uniform was wrinkled, and there was a coffee stain on his sleeve that he'd clearly tried to hide. Miss Sullivan, Deputy, how are you feeling? Like I got stabbed? He nodded as if this was a perfectly reasonable answer. I need to ask you some questions about what happened at the Rusty Nail. Now, I'm afraid so. The man who attacked you, Danny Voss, he's still at large. We need to know everything you remember. Megan closed her eyes, trying to pull the memories together. They were fragmented, scattered, like pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit. I was clearing tables near closing time. The bar was mostly empty. How many people? Maybe 20, the usual crowd. Some locals, some. She hesitated. Some bikers? Cole Harding's men. Yeah. Did you know who they were? Everyone knows who they are. Morrison nodded slowly. What happened next? I saw the knife. In the reflection of the glass, someone was coming up behind Harding, and I saw the knife. Did you recognize the attacker? No, I'd never seen him before. But you moved anyway. Megan opened her eyes and looked at the deputy. I didn't think, I just moved. You threw yourself in front of a blade for a man you didn't know. That's what everyone keeps telling me. Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed, rubbing his face with one hand. Ms. Sullivan, I've been a cop in this town for 23 years. I've seen a lot of things. Good things, bad things, stupid things. He met her eyes. What you did wasn't stupid. It was brave. Maybe the bravest thing I've ever seen. Thank you. But it's also created a situation I don't know how to handle. The bikers. 300 of them, surrounding my hospital. The mayor's been calling every hour. The chief wants answers. The media is going crazy. He paused. And Cole Harding won't leave. Well, what do you want me to do about it? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Morrison stood up suddenly, looking older than his years. I just wanted you to understand what's happening out there. Because of you. Because of me. You changed something, Ms. Sullivan. I don't know what yet. But something in this town shifted last night, and I don't think it's going back to normal anytime soon. He walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're alive. This town needs more people like you. Then he was gone. Lucas let out a breath he'd been holding. Well, that was intense. Yeah. What do you think he meant about something shifting? Megan looked toward the window. She could hear the engines, could feel them in her bones. I have no idea. But she was starting to suspect it was something bigger than she could understand. Cole Harding hadn't slept in 36 hours. He stood in the hospital parking lot surrounded by his men, watching the sun climb higher in the sky. His eyes burned, his body ached, but he didn't move. Jax approached with 2 cups of coffee. You need to rest. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're running on fumes and stubbornness. Same thing. Jax handed him a cup anyway. She's awake. She's stable. The doctors say she's going to make it. You can take a break. Not yet. Cole, not yet. Jax fell silent. He knew that tone, knew better than to push. They stood together drinking coffee, watching the motorcycles line the streets. The media vans had multiplied overnight. Reporters stood at a safe distance, cameras rolling, trying to capture the story they didn't quite understand. There's something I need to tell you, Jax said finally. What? It's about Danny Voss. Cole's jaw tightened. You found him. Not exactly, but we found something else. Wait, Jax pulled out his phone, scrolling through messages. I got word from one of our contacts in Millbrook. Danny's been talking, bragging actually, about what happened at the bar. Bragging. He's telling people it wasn't his idea, that someone paid him to do it. Cole turned to face him. Paid him who? He didn't say, but here's the thing. The price was 10 grand. Danny Voss doesn't have 2 nickels to rub together. Someone put serious money on your head. Victor Sloan? The name hung in the air like poison. Jax nodded slowly. That's what I'm thinking. Victor Sloan, president of the Iron Serpents, a rival club that had been pushing into Hell's Angels territory for the past 2 years. They'd clashed before bar fights, territory disputes, the usual posturing. But nothing like this. A contract hit was something else entirely. You think Victor's making a move? I think Victor's been waiting for the right moment, and he thought last night was it. Cole processed this information. His mind was tired, sluggish, but the anger cut through the fog like a blade. He missed. He missed because of her. Jax gestured toward the hospital. A waitress saved your life and screwed up Victor's entire plan. That's going to piss him off. Good. Good, Cole. If Victor's behind this, he's not going to stop. He's going to try again. And next time he might not miss. Let him try. Brother, I'm serious. We need to. I know what we need to do. Cole's voice was cold, hard, but not yet. First we make sure she's safe. Then we deal with Victor. And if he comes here to the hospital. Cole looked at his VP, at the man who'd ridden beside him for 15 years, at the face that knew him better than anyone. Then God help him. The first sign of trouble came at 2 p.m. A convoy of motorcycles appeared on the horizon. Not Hell's Angels, the patches were wrong. Dark colors, different insignia. Iron Serpents. The word spread through Cole's men like wildfire. Engines revved. Hands moved toward weapons that weren't supposed to be there, but absolutely were. Easy. Cole's voice cut through the tension. Nobody moves until I say. The convoy stopped at the edge of the hospital property. 50 bikes, maybe 60. Their engines idled, sending a rumble across the parking lot that mixed with the Hells Angels' own sound. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a single bike pulled forward. A man climbed off, tall, thin, with a shaved head and a snake tattoo coiling up his neck. Victor Sloan. He walked toward the hospital entrance with the confidence of someone who owned the world. Two of his men flanked him, but he didn't need backup. His reputation was protection enough. Cole stepped forward to meet him. They stopped 10 feet apart. The air between them crackled with history and hatred. Cole. Victor. Hell of a thing you've got going here. Victor gestured at the rows of Hell's Angels bikes. 300 men for one waitress. Must be some waitress. What do you want? Just came to pay my respects. Heard about what happened. Terrible thing, a woman getting hurt like that. Yeah, terrible. Victor smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Word is she jumped in front of a knife meant for you. That's loyalty. Hard to find loyalty like that these days. Harder for some than others. The smile flickered. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know about Danny Voss. I know about the 10 grand. And I know where it came from. Victor's face went still. Careful, Cole. You don't want to make accusations you can't back up. I'm not making accusations. I'm making promises. Cole stepped closer. You put a hit on me. You missed. And now you're standing in front of a hospital where a woman is fighting for her life because of your mistake. That girl's got nothing to do with me. She's got everything to do with you, because she's the only reason I'm still breathing. And as long as she's alive, I'm going to remember exactly who put her in that bed. Victor's jaw tightened. For a moment, just a moment, something like fear flickered in his eyes. Then it was gone. You've got it all figured out, don't you? Big bad Cole Harding, always 2 steps ahead. He shook his head. But here's the thing, you can't prove any of it. Danny Voss is a tweaker. His word against mine, nobody's going to believe him. I don't need anyone to believe him. I just need to know. And what are you going to do with that knowledge? Start a war here, in front of all these cameras? Victor laughed. You're smarter than that. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. Cole's voice dropped to a whisper. But here's what I know for it. You came here to rattle me. To show your men that you're not afraid. To prove that Victor Sloan doesn't back down from anyone. So you miscalculated. Cole gestured at the hospital behind him. Because I don't care about territory anymore. I don't care about reputation. I don't care about any of the things we've been fighting over for the past 2 years. Then what do you care about her? The word hung in the air. Victor blinked. You're joking. I've never been more serious in my life. That woman in there, she changed something. I don't know what yet, but I know that as long as she's breathing, I've got a reason to keep going, and anyone who threatens that. Cole's eyes went cold. Anyone who tries to hurt her, to use her, to get to me through her, they're going to find out exactly how far I'm willing to go. Victor stared at him. For the first time since they'd known each other, he looked uncertain. You're losing it, Cole. One waitress takes a knife for you, and you go soft. I'm not going soft. I'm getting focused. On what? On what matters. A long silence stretched between them. The engines rumbled. The cameras rolled. The whole world seemed to hold its breath. Finally, Victor stepped back. This isn't over. No, it's not. You think you've got the upper hand because you've got 300 men in the media watching. But cameras don't last forever, and neither do crowds. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Victor turned and walked back toward his bike. We'll see each other again, Cole, when the lights are off and the reporters are gone, and then we'll settle this properly. He climbed on his bike and fired the engine. One more thing. Cole waited. Victor looked over his shoulder. Tell the waitress, I said get well soon. She's going to need her strength. Then he was gone. The Iron Serpent's convoy pulled away their engines, fading into the distance. Jax appeared at Cole's side. That was, I know. He's not going to let this go. I know. So what do we do? Cole watched the last of the serpents disappear over the hill. His hands were shaking slightly, not from fear but from the effort of holding himself back. We wait, we watch, and we make sure she's protected every second of every day until this is over. And when it's over, Cole turned toward the hospital, toward the window where he knew Megan was lying fighting to heal, unaware of the war that was brewing around her. Then we end it, once and for all. Megan heard about the confrontation from a nurse who couldn't keep her mouth shut. They just stood there face to face like gunslingers in an old Western. I thought for sure someone was going to throw a punch. But nobody did. No, the other guy, the one with the snake tattoo, he left. But the way he looked at Mr. Harding, the nurse shivered. That's the kind of look that starts wars. What's his name, the snake guy? Victor something, Sloan, I think. He runs another motorcycle club, the Iron Serpents. And he came here to the hospital, drove right up with 50 of his men, scared the hell out of everyone. The nurse lowered her voice. Some people are saying he's the one who ordered the attack, that he paid that Voss guy to kill Mr. Harding. Megan felt something cold settle in her stomach. The attack that put me here. Yeah, I mean, it's just rumors, but the nurse trailed off, suddenly realizing she'd said too much. I should go. You need rest. She hurried out of the room. Megan stared at the ceiling, processing what she'd just heard. Someone had paid to have Cole killed. That someone might have just shown up at the hospital. And now there was a war, brewing a war that existed because she'd been stupid enough to jump in front of a knife. No, not stupid, brave. That's what everyone kept calling it. Brave. But brave didn't feel like anything right now. It just felt like pain and confusion and a growing sense that she'd stumbled into something much bigger than herself. The door opened again. This time it was Cole. He looked worse than before, dark circles under his eyes, stubble covering his jaw, the kind of exhaustion that went deeper than just lack of sleep. You heard, he said. The nurse talks too much. I'll have a word with her. Don't. It's not her fault I ask questions. Cole crossed the room and sat in the chair beside her bed, the same chair he'd occupied before, the same position like he belonged there. Victor Sloan, Megan said. He's the one who ordered the hit. I think so. I can't prove it yet. But you believe it. Yeah, I do. Why? Cole was quiet for a moment. Because we've been at each other's throats for 2 years. Territory disputes, bar fights, the usual garbage that happens when two clubs butt heads. He shook his head. But this is different. This is escalation. And Victor's the only one who benefits from me being dead. So what happens now? Now we wait. Victor's not stupid enough to try anything with this many eyes on him, but eventually the media will leave. The crowds will thin out, and when they do, he'll come back. Probably. Megan turned her head to look at him. You should leave. Go somewhere safe until this blows over. Cole laughed. It was a harsh, humorless sound. Leave and let him think he scared me off. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? It works like this. I stay. My men stay. We make sure you're protected. And when Victor makes his move, we're ready for him. Protected. Megan shook her head weakly. I don't need protection. I'm just a waitress. You're not just anything, not anymore. Cole leaned forward, his eyes intense. You took a blade for me. That means something. In my world, that means everything. Your world sounds exhausting. It is. A small smile. But it's the only one I've got. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the engines rumbled. The sound had become so constant that Megan almost didn't notice it anymore. Almost. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Why me? Cole frowned. What do you mean? I mean, you've got 300 men out there. You've got resources, connections, power. You could have anyone you wanted watching your back. She met his eyes. So why are you sitting here in this room with me? Cole was quiet for a long time. So long that Megan thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he spoke. I had a daughter. The words hung in the air. Megan felt something shift in her chest. Had she died 10 years ago, drive-by shooting? His voice was flat, controlled. The voice of someone who'd learned to bury his pain deep. She was 18, same age you would have been when you enlisted. Cole. She was walking home from school. Wrong place, wrong time. Bullvent wasn't even meant for her. It was meant for someone else. Someone who owed money to someone who owed money to someone who... He trailed off. Doesn't matter. The bullet found her anyway. Megan didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. I spent 5 years after that trying to find the person responsible. Tore apart half the state looking for answers. And when I finally found him, Cole's hands clenched into fists. I realized it didn't matter. Nothing I did would bring her back. Nothing I did would fill that hole. So what did you do? I stopped looking, stopped caring, started building walls so high that nothing could get through. He met her eyes. And then you came along. Me. You, a waitress in a dive bar. Nobody special, nobody important. His voice softened. And you threw yourself in front of a knife for a stranger, without hesitation, without thinking. Just moved. I don't see what that has to do with your daughter. Everything. Cole reached out and took her hand. She would have done the same thing. That's who she was. Always jumping in front of people. Always taking the hits. He swallowed hard. When I saw you lying there bleeding out on that bar floor, for a second I thought I was watching her die all over again. Megan felt tears burning in her eyes. But you didn't die, Cole continued. You fought. You came back. And now... He shook his head. I don't know how to explain it, but something changed. Something in me shifted, and I'm not letting that go. Cole, I'm not your daughter. I know. I'm not here to replace her. I know that too. He squeezed her hand. But maybe, just maybe, you're here to remind me that the world isn't as dark as I thought. That there are still people worth protecting. Worth fighting for. Megan didn't know what to say. The tears were falling now, streaming down her cheeks. Cole stood up and gently wiped them away with his thumb. Rest, heal, and when you're ready, we'll figure out what comes next. What if Victor comes back? Then I'll deal with him. What if... Megan. His voice was firm but gentle. You saved my life. Now let me return the favor. He walked to the door and paused. One more thing. What? Your brother, Lucas, he's a good kid. Reminds me of someone I used to know. Who? Cole smiled. It was the first real smile she'd seen from him. Myself, before I forgot how to believe in people. Then he was gone. And Megan was left alone with the rumble of engines and the weight of everything that had just happened. That night, something changed in the hospital. The fear that had gripped the staff for the past 2 days began to fade. Nurses stopped flinching when they passed bikers in the hallways. Doctors nodded in acknowledgement instead of looking away. It started small. One of Cole's men, a giant named Tiny, which was clearly a joke, helped an elderly woman find her husband's room. Another biker gave up his seat in the waiting area for a pregnant woman who looked like she was about to collapse. Small gestures, human gestures, and word spread. Patricia Holloway, the head nurse who'd initially wanted every biker removed from the premises, found herself sharing a cup of coffee with Jax Turner at 3 a.m. You're not what I expected, she admitted. Nobody ever is. I mean, the patches, the bikes, the reputation. We all thought you were dangerous. We are dangerous. Jax took a sip of his coffee. But dangerous doesn't mean evil. It just means we've seen things, done things, survived things that would break most people. Like what? Jax was quiet for a moment. Then I was a Marine, 3 tours in Iraq. Came back with more demons than I knew what to do with. The club saved me, gave me a family when I didn't have one, gave me purpose when I thought I'd lost it. And the others, they all have stories like that. Most of them, veterans, former addicts, lost men who found something worth holding on to. He gestured toward the parking lot, toward the rows of bikes still standing vigil. That's what this is about. Not territory, not reputation, family. Patricia looked at him with new eyes. I owe you an apology. For what? For judging you, all of you. I saw the leather and the tattoos and assumed the worst. Jack smiled. Don't feel bad, most people do. It's easier to fear what you don't understand than to actually understand it. Maybe, but still, thank you for being here, for giving blood, for treating our staff with respect even when we didn't deserve it. We're not doing it for the staff. Jax nodded toward the ICU wing. We're doing it for her. The waitress. Megan. Her name is Megan. Right, Megan. Patricia shook her head slowly. That woman has no idea how many lives she's changed in the past 48 hours. No, Jax agreed. She doesn't. But she will. She do. At 6 a.m., the blood bank called with news. They were running low again. Megan's blood type O negative was the universal donor, but also the hardest to keep in stock. Her surgery had depleted their reserves, and now other patients were at risk. Word reached the parking lot within minutes. Cole didn't have to say anything, didn't have to ask. The line formed on its own, bikers rolling up their sleeves, tattooed arms, scarred knuckles, hands that had done terrible things, offering something precious. The hospital set up a mobile donation station in the parking lot. By noon, they'd collected more blood than they'd seen in a month. Dr. Nathan Cross, the surgeon who'd saved Megan's life, walked outside during a break and just stared. "I've never seen anything like this," he murmured. One of the bikers, a grizzled older man with a patch that read Road Dog, overheard him. "You saved one of ours. Now we're helping save some of yours." She's not actually part of your club." Road Dog smiled. "Not officially, but loyalty isn't about patches, Doc. It's about what you do when it matters." And she did something that mattered. She did everything that mattered. Dr. Cross watched the line of bikers waiting to give blood. Men who 24 hours ago he would have crossed the street to avoid. "I think I owe you all an apology." "Save it." Road Dog clapped him on the shoulder. "Just keep her alive. That's all we ask." Greta. Lucas Sullivan sat by his sister's bed watching her sleep. She looked so small, so fragile, nothing like the woman who charged into firefights to drag wounded soldiers to safety. Nothing like the sister who'd worked 3 jobs to pay his tuition. He'd spent his whole life in her shadow, not resentfully, gratefully. She'd protected him from everything, from bullies in elementary school, from their mother's illness, from their father's abandonment. She'd given up college so he could go. She'd given up relationships so she could send money home. She'd given up her dreams so he could have his. And now she was lying in a hospital bed with a hole in her side because she couldn't stop saving people. "You're an idiot," he whispered. "You know that." Megan stirred but didn't wake. "A complete and total idiot who jumps in front of a knife. Who does that?" He wiped his eyes. When had he started crying? "When you wake up when you're better, we're going to have a long talk about self-preservation, about boundaries, about the fact that you can't save everyone." He took her hand, squeezed it gently. "But until then, I'll be here. Every day, every night, however long it takes." The door opened behind him. He didn't turn around. "She's still sleeping," he said. "The nurse said she needs, I know what she needs." Lucas turned. Cole Harding stood in the doorway, a cup of coffee in each hand. "Thought you could use this." "Thanks." Lucas took the cup without enthusiasm. "You don't have to keep checking on her. The doctors say she's stable." "I know." "So why are you here?" Cole walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot, at his men, at the bikes that hadn't moved in days. "Because I can't be anywhere else." Lucas studied the biker captain, the exhaustion in his face, the weight in his shoulders, the way he looked at Megan like she was something precious. "You love her." It wasn't a question. Cole didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quiet. "I've known her for 2 days. You can't love someone in 2 days." "Then what is this?" "I don't know." Cole turned to face him. "But I know it's real, and I know I'm not walking away from it." Lucas nodded slowly. "She's not going to make this easy. You know that, right?" "What do you mean?" "I mean she's stubborn, proud, independent to a fault." A small smile. "She doesn't let people in easily, doesn't accept help, doesn't admit when she's struggling." Sounds familiar? "Yeah, well, that's Megan." Lucas looked at his sister's sleeping face. "But if you're serious, if you really want to be part of her life, you're going to have to prove it. Not with gestures or grand statements. With time, patience, consistency." "I can do that." "Can you?" Cole met his eyes. "I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. Done things I'm not proud of. But when I commit to something, when I really commit, I don't quit. Even if she pushes you away. Especially then." Lucas studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, okay, I believe you." He held out his hand. But if you hurt her, if you break her heart or put her in danger, you'll kill me yourself. Something like that. Cole shook his hand. Fair enough. They stood there, two men from completely different worlds, united by their love for the woman lying between them. Outside, the engines rumbled, and somewhere in the distance, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. The storm broke on the fourth day. Megan was sitting up in bed for the first time, sipping broth through a straw, when the door burst open. Jack stood there breathing hard, his face tight with urgency. We got him. Cole was on his feet before Jax finished speaking. Danny Voss. Picked him up 20 minutes ago. He was trying to cross into Nevada. Our guys intercepted him at a gas station near the border. Where is he now? Basement of the old warehouse on 5th. The boys are keeping him company. Megan set down her broth. Wait, you kidnapped him? Both men turned to look at her. Cole's expression was unreadable. Jax looked like he'd forgotten she was in the room. We didn't kidnap anyone, Cole said carefully. We just found him and convinced him to come with us. That's kidnapping. That's justice, culpa. Megan's voice was sharp, sharper than she intended. He needs to go to the police. He needs to face real consequences. Real consequences? Cole laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think the cops are going to do anything? Danny's a tweaker with no record. His word against mine. Victor Sloan's got lawyers that cost more than this hospital. The system will chew this case up and spit it out. So what's your plan? Beat a confession out of him. Silence. One. Megan felt her stomach drop. Cole, tell me that's not the plan. The plan is to find out who paid him, to get proof, to make sure Victor Sloan can't hurt anyone else. And if Danny won't talk, Cole's jaw tightened, then we make him talk. No. The word cut through the room like a blade. Cole stared at her. No. You heard me? No. Megan pushed herself up straighter, ignoring the pain that shot through her side. I didn't take a knife for you so you could become the monster everyone thinks you are. Megan, I'm serious. You want to beat up some junkie, fine, but don't pretend it's for me. Don't pretend it's justice. That's revenge, and revenge doesn't heal anything. You don't understand how this world works. I understand better than you think. Her eyes were fierce. I spent 3 years in a war zone. I watched good men do terrible things because they convinced themselves it was necessary. Because they told themselves the ends justified the means. She shook her head. They were wrong. And so are you. Cole's hands curled into fists. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Jax cleared his throat. She's got a point, brother. Cole turned on him. What? I said she's got a point. We beat Danny. We're no better than Victor. And if the cops find out, he shrugged. We've got 300 witnesses in that parking lot. Media everywhere. One wrong move and everything we've built comes crashing down. So what do you suggest? Let him go. Pretend none of this happened. No, Megan's voice was calm now, controlled. Bring him here. Both men stared at her. Bring him to the hospital. Let me talk to him. You want to talk to the man who stabbed you. I want to look him in the eye. I want to understand why he did it. And then, she took a breath. Then I'll decide what happens next. Cole shook his head slowly. That's insane. Maybe, but it's the only way I'll agree to this. You want my blessing? You want to do this in my name? She met his eyes. Then do it my way. A long silence stretched between them. Cole's face was a war of emotions, anger, frustration, something that might have been respect. Finally, he spoke. Fine, we'll bring him here, but if he threatens you, if he makes one wrong move, then you can do whatever you want, but give me a chance first. Cole turned to Jax. You heard her. Bring Danny Voss to the hospital. Clean him up, make sure he's presentable. And for God's sake, don't let anyone see you. Jax nodded and disappeared. Cole stood there looking at Megan like he was seeing her for the first time. You're either the bravest person I've ever met, he said quietly, or the craziest. Probably both. Yeah, a ghost of a smile. Probably both. Danny Voss arrived 2 hours later. He was younger than Megan expected, 23, maybe 24. Thin, jittery, the kind of face that had probably been handsome once before the drugs hollowed it out. 2 bikers escorted him into the room. His hands were zip-tied in front of him, and there was a bruise on his cheek that suggested the convincing hadn't been entirely gentle. But he was alive, and he was here. Cole stood by the window, arms crossed, watching like a hawk ready to strike. Lucas had been asked to leave. He'd protested, but ultimately agreed. This wasn't his fight. Danny's eyes darted around the room, landing on Megan's face. Something flickered there. Recognition. Guilt. Fear. "Sit down," Cole ordered. Danny sat in the chair beside the bed. His hands were shaking. Megan studied him for a long moment. This was the man who'd nearly killed her. The man whose blade had torn through her flesh, nicked her liver, almost ended her life. She should hate him. She didn't. "What's your name?" she asked. Danny blinked. Whatever he'd been expecting, it wasn't that. You know my name. I know what they call you. I want to hear it from you." A long pause, then, Daniel James Voss. "How old are you?" Daniel, at 24. "And you tried to kill a man you'd never met. Why?" Danny's eyes dropped to the floor. His whole body seemed to shrink. "I needed the money." "For what?" "My mom, she's sick. Cancer. Stage 4. His voice cracked. "The bills are eating us alive. I didn't know what else to do." "So someone offered you $10,000 to commit murder." Danny flinched like she'd slapped him. "It wasn't supposed to be murder. They said I just had to scare him. Send a message. Nobody mentioned killing. But you brought a knife. For protection, in case something went wrong." He looked up, eyes wet. "I wasn't going to use it. Not really. But then I saw him sitting there and I thought if I just did it quick, if I just got it over with, you'd have your money and your mother would be saved." "Yeah." Megan was quiet for a moment. She could feel Cole's tension from across the room, could feel his rage barely contained. But she pressed on. "Who hired you, Daniel?" Danny shook his head frantically. "I can't. If I tell you, they'll kill me. They'll kill my mom. Victor Sloan." Danny went pale. His whole body froze. "We already know," Megan continued. "We just need you to confirm it. Was it Victor Sloan?" A long, terrible silence. Then Danny nodded. "Say it." "It was Victor Sloan. He came to me 3 weeks ago. Said he had a job. Said if I did it right, all my problems would go away." Danny's voice broke. "I didn't want to. I swear to God, I didn't want to. But my mom, your mom, she's all I have. My dad left when I was 6. My brother overdosed 2 years ago. She's the only person who ever believed in me. And now and I can't." He dissolved into sobs. "I can't lose her too." Megan watched him cry. This broken young man who'd made the worst decision of his life out of desperation and love. She understood desperation. She understood love. She also understood consequences. "Daniel." He looked up, tears streaming down his face. "I'm not going to let them hurt you." Danny's eyes widened. "What?" "I said I'm not going to let them hurt you, but you have to help us. You have to tell the police everything. Victor Sloan, the money, all of it." "I can't. If you do that, you'll be protected. We'll make sure of it." She glanced at Cole. "Won't we?" Cole's jaw was tight. Every muscle in his body screamed resistance. But he met Megan's eyes and something passed between them. "Yeah," he said finally. "We'll protect you." Danny looked between them, confusion and hope wearing on his face. Why would you do that? I stabbed you. I almost killed you." "Because someone has to break the cycle." Megan reached out and touched his bound hands. "You made a terrible choice. You'll have to live with that. But you're not a monster, Daniel. You're a desperate kid who got manipulated by someone much worse than you. You're going to forgive me. I'm going to give you a chance. That's not the same thing." She withdrew her hand. "What you do with that chance is up to you." Danny stared at her like she was speaking a language he'd never heard. Then slowly he nodded. "Okay, I'll talk. I'll tell them everything." "Good." Megan looked at Cole. "Call Deputy Morrison. Tell him we have a witness." Cole didn't move for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and walked into the hallway. Danny sat in the chair, tears still wet on his face, looking at the woman he'd almost killed. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I know. You should hate me. Probably. Megan leaned back against her pillows, exhaustion washing over her. But hate is heavy, and I'm tired of carrying heavy things. Deputy Morrison arrived within the hour. He took Danny's statement in a room down the hall with 2 officers present and a recording device running. The confession was thorough: names, dates, amounts. Victor Sloan's involvement laid bare. Cole stood in the hallway watching through the window. Jax appeared beside him. "You okay?" "No. She was right, about the revenge thing." "I know she was right. That's what pisses me off." Jax laughed quietly. "She's something else." "Yeah." Cole's eyes never left the interrogation room. "She is." "So what now? Morrison's got the confession. Victor's name is on record. But you know as well as I do that confession might not be enough. It's a start. Victor's got resources, lawyers, connections. He'll fight this." "Let him fight." Cole's voice was cold. "Let him spend every dollar he has trying to stay out of prison. Let him look over his shoulder every night wondering when we're coming. Let him know what it feels like to be hunted. And if he comes after her again..." Cole turned to face his VP. His eyes were flat, dangerous. "Then there won't be enough pieces left to identify you." The news broke that evening. Someone leaked Danny's confession to the press. Within hours, Victor Sloan's name was everywhere: TV, radio, social media. The story spread like wildfire. A motorcycle club president accused of ordering a hit on a rival, a waitress nearly killed in the crossfire. The public response was overwhelming. Victor's businesses started receiving threats. His club members were harassed on the streets. 2 of his bars were vandalized overnight. By midnight, the Iron Serpents were in full retreat. But Victor himself was still free. And everyone knew that a cornered animal was the most dangerous cane to own. Megan was awake when Cole came to her room at 2 a.m. "You should be sleeping," he said. "So should you." He sat in the chair beside her bed. The same chair, the same position, like he belonged there. "Victor's gone underground. Nobody knows where he is." "That's bad. That's dangerous." Cole ran a hand through his hair. "He's got nothing left to lose. His reputation is destroyed. His club is falling apart. The only thing he has left is revenge. You think he'll come after you? I think he'll come after you." Megan felt a chill run down her spine. "Me? You're the reason everything fell apart for him. If you hadn't survived, if Danny hadn't talked it, if..." Cole shook his head. "In his mind, you're the one who ruined him." "That's insane. That's how men like Victor think. They can't accept responsibility for their own failures. They need someone to blame." His eyes met hers. "And right now, that someone is you. So what do? We stay vigilant. We don't let our guard down. And we hope the cops find him before he finds us." Megan was quiet for a moment. "Then, what if they don't? Then we handle it ourselves." "Cole, I'm not going to let him hurt you, no matter what it takes." His voice was fierce, absolute. "You saved my life. Now I'm going to save yours. That's not negotiable." She looked at him, at this man she barely knew but somehow understood completely. "What did I do to deserve this everything?" He took her hand. "You did everything." The attack came 3 nights later. Megan had been moved to a private room on the 4th floor. Security had been tripled. Cole's men patrolled the hallways in shifts. None of it mattered. Victor Sloan came through the window. It was 3 a.m. Megan was asleep. Cole had finally been convinced to rest in a room down the hall. The first thing she knew there was a hand over her mouth. Her eyes flew open. Victor's face loomed above her, illuminated by the glow of medical equipment. His eyes were wild, desperate, mad. "Don't scream," he hissed. "One sound, and I'll finish what Danny started." Megan's heart hammered against her ribs. She could feel the cold press of metal against her throat. A knife, another knife. "I lost everything because of you, Pim," Victor whispered. "My club, my reputation, my future. All because some waitress decided to play hero." He pressed the blade harder. A thin line of blood trickled down her neck. Any last words? Megan's mind raced. She couldn't overpower him. She was too weak, too injured. She couldn't scream. The knife would kill her before anyone reached the door. But she could talk. "Your daughter." Victor froze. "What? You have a daughter, don't you? I heard one of your men mention some..." "Shut up. How old is she? 15, 16? I said shut up. What is she going to think when she finds out her father murdered a woman in a hospital bed? What's she going to think when she realizes, stop? The knife trembled against her throat. Victor's face was twisted with rage and something else, something that looked like pain. You don't know anything about my daughter. I know you love her. I know that's why you're here, because you think everything you've done was to protect her, to provide for her. Megan's voice was calm, steady. But this won't protect her. This will destroy her. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I spent years watching soldiers make decisions they thought were right, only to realize too late that they'd become the monsters they were fighting. She met his eyes. Is that what you want, to become the monster your daughter will have to live with for the rest of her life? Victor stared at her. The knife was still at her throat, but his hand had stopped pressing. She already thinks I'm a monster. Then prove her wrong. It's too late for that. It's never too late. Megan's voice softened. You can still choose. Right now, in this moment. You can choose to be the father she deserves. A long, terrible silence. Then the door burst open. Cole crashed through, gun-raised eyes blazing with fury. Behind him, Jax and 3 other bikers flooded the room. Drop it, Victor. Now! Victor's head whipped toward the door. His grip on the knife tightened. One more step and she dies. You kill her, you die. That's a promise. Maybe I don't care anymore. And then think about your daughter. Cole's voice was ice. Think about what happens to her when you're gone. Who takes care of her? Who protects her? Victor's face crumpled. The madness in his eyes flickered, replaced by something raw. Broken. She's better off without me. That's not your choice to make. Cole took a step closer. Put down the knife, Victor. Let us end this without more blood. For an eternity, nobody moved. Then Victor's hand fell to his side. The knife clattered to the floor. Cole's men surged forward, grabbing Victor, forcing him to his knees. Jax kicked the knife away. Someone was shouting for security for the police. But Megan only had eyes for Victor. He knelt on the floor, defeated, broken, staring at nothing. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Megan didn't respond. She couldn't, but she understood. She understood that monsters were just people who had forgotten how to be human. And sometimes the bravest thing you could do was remind them. So, the police took Victor Sloan into custody at 3:47 a.m. The charges were staggering: attempted murder, conspiracy assault, breaking and entering. Combined with Danny's testimony, he was looking at life without parole. The Iron Serpents disbanded before dawn. Without their leader, without their reputation, there was nothing left to hold them together. The war was over, but the cost was written on Megan's face. Cole sat beside her, holding her hand, watching the thin red line on her neck, where Victor's blade had pressed. I'm sorry, he said. I should have been here. I should have. You couldn't have known. I should have known. That's my job, protecting people. You can't protect everyone, Cole, not all the time. He looked at her, his eyes wet. I can try. You already did. She squeezed his hand. You got here in time. That's what matters. But if I'd been 30 seconds later, but you weren't. Her voice was firm. I'm alive. Victor's in custody. It's over. Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then is it really over? The fighting is, the rest? She managed a weak smile. The rest is just beginning. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. Then let's begin together. Outside, the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, and in the parking lot, 300 engines began to roar. Not in anger, not in warning, in celebration, because their captain was safe, and the woman who saved him was finally going to heal. The days after Victor's arrest passed in a blur of doctors, detectives, and decisions. Megan's wound was healing. The stitches were clean, the infection risk had passed, and Dr. Cross had started talking about discharge dates. But the cut on her neck, the thin red line where Victor's blade had pressed that wound, was different. Every time she looked in the mirror, she saw it. Every time she touched it, she remembered. Cole noticed. You're not sleeping. It was 6 a.m. He'd come to her room like he did every morning, 2 cups of coffee in hand, dark circles under his eyes that matched her own. Neither are you. I'm used to it. So am I. He sat in the chair beside her bed. That chair had become his throne, his post, his permanent residence. The nurses had stopped trying to kick him out. "Talk to me," he said. Megan stared at the ceiling. "About what?" "About whatever's keeping you awake at 3 a.m. "How do you know I'm awake at 3 a.m.? "Because I'm standing outside your door at 3 a.m. She turned to look at him. "You're watching me sleep. I'm making sure nobody else tries to kill you." He shrugged. "Sleeping is a bonus." "Cole, you can't keep doing this. You have a club to run, a life to live. My life is here. That's not sustainable. Neither is dying, but you seem determined to test that theory." She almost smiled. Almost. "I keep seeing his face." Cole went still. "Victor's?" "Yeah, the way he looked at me. The desperation in his eyes, the way he said he was sorry right before they dragged him away." She shook her head. "I should hate him. He tried to kill me, twice technically, but I don't. I just feel sad. Sad for his daughter, for the person he could have been, for all the choices that led him to that moment." She took a breath. "I spent 3 years in a war zone. I've seen what happens when people lose everything. They become capable of things they never imagined. That doesn't excuse what he did." "No, it doesn't, but it explains it." She met his eyes. "And understanding is the first step toward healing." Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out and took her hand. "You're a better person than me." "I'm not." "You are, because if someone put a knife to your throat, I wouldn't be looking for understanding. I'd be looking for blood. And that's the difference between us." "Is it?" "Yeah." She squeezed his hand. "I've seen enough blood for one lifetime. I'm done adding to it." They sat in silence, watching the dawn light creep through the window. Finally, Cole spoke. "Dr. Cross says you can go home in 3 days." "I know. Do you have somewhere to go? Your apartment or—" "My apartment." Megan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean the studio above the laundromat that smells like fabric softener and broken dreams?" "Yeah, I've got somewhere to go." "That doesn't sound like a home." "It's what I can afford." Cole hesitated. Then, "I have a place, outside town, quiet, safe. You could stay there until you're fully recovered." Megan's eyebrows rose. "You're offering me your house?" "I'm offering you a safe place to heal. No strings attached." "Cole, I know what you're thinking, and I'm not trying to trap you or control you or whatever else you're imagining." He met her eyes. "I just want you safe, that's all. And where would you be? There's a guest house on the property. I'd stay there. You'd move out of your own home." "For you, yeah." Megan studied his face, looking for the catch, the angle, the hidden agenda. She'd been around enough people to know when she was being played. She didn't see any of that. She just saw a man who meant every word. "I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking." The door opened and Lucas walked in carrying a bag of takeout that smelled like heaven. "Breakfast," he announced. "Real food, not that hospital garbage they've been feeding you." "Lucas, you're a saint." "I know." He set the bag on the bedside table and pulled out containers. "Pancakes, bacon, scrambled eggs. Your favorites." Megan's stomach growled. She hadn't realized how hungry she was. Cole stood up. "I'll give you 2 sometime." "You don't have to leave." "Yeah, I do. You need family time." He nodded at Lucas. "Take care of her." "Always do." Cole walked to the door, then paused. "Megan." "Yeah. Think about what I said, please." Then he was gone. Lucas watched him leave, then turned to his sister with raised eyebrows. "What was that about?" "He offered me his house." "His house while I recover. He'd stay in the guest house." Lucas was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, "Are you going to do it?" "I don't know. It feels like too much, like I'm taking advantage." "Of a guy who's had 300 men standing guard outside your window for a week, I don't think he'd see it that way." Megan picked at her pancakes. "It's complicated." "It's really not." Lucas sat on the edge of her bed. "Look, I know you. You're independent, proud. You hate accepting help from anyone. But sometimes the best thing you can do is let people help you." "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from my sister." She smiled, a real smile this time. "I'll think about it." "That's all I'm asking, ma'am." The knock came at 10 a.m. Megan looked up from her book to see Patricia Holloway standing in the doorway. The head nurse looked different than she had a week ago, less tense, more open. You have visitors, more visitors. These are different. Patricia's lips twitched. I think you'll want to see them. Megan set down her book as a parade of people filed into her room. First came Tiny the giant biker who'd helped the elderly woman find her husband. He was carrying a massive bouquet of wildflowers. From the boys, he said gruffly, setting them on the windowsill. We didn't know what you liked, so we got everything. Behind him came Road Dog, the grizzled veteran who'd talked to Dr. Cross about loyalty. He was holding a small box. My wife made cookies. She wanted you to know that if you ever need anything at all, you just ask. Then came others. Bikers she'd never met whose names she didn't know, but whose faces she was starting to recognize. They came with gifts and cards and awkward expressions. Men who clearly weren't used to hospital visits, but had come anyway. Thank you, Megan said, overwhelmed. All of you, but you didn't have to. Yeah, we did. Tiny's voice was firm. You saved our captain. That makes you family, and family takes care of each other. I'm not part of your club. Don't need to be part of a club to be family. Road Dog smiled. You just need to show up when it matters. And lady, you showed up. One by one, they paid their respects, shook her hand, nodded with something that looked like reverence. Then they left, filing out as quietly as they'd come. Patricia stood in the doorway watching them go. I've worked here for 40 years, she said quietly. I've seen a lot of things, but I've never seen anything like this. Neither have I. Those men, they're not what I thought they were. Nobody ever is. Patricia turned to look at her, including you. Megan considered the question. A week ago, she'd been a waitress. Nobody special, nobody important, just a woman trying to make ends meet, trying to forget the things she'd seen overseas, trying to live a quiet life. Now she was something else. She just wasn't sure what yet. Including me, she said finally, especially me. That afternoon, Cole returned with news. Danny Voss's mother. Megan looked up from her flowers. What about her? She's dying. Stage 4 cancer, like he said. The doctors give her 3 months, maybe less. That's terrible. Yeah. Cole sat in his chair. But here's the thing. Danny's confession, his cooperation, it's going to help his case. The DA is talking about a plea deal, reduced charges, maybe 5 years instead of 20. Good. Good. He made a terrible choice, but he did it for the right reasons, and he's trying to make amends. Megan shrugged. That counts for something. Cole studied her face. You really are going to forgive him, aren't you? I already have. How can you do that? Because holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. She smiled sadly. I learned that in therapy, after my first tour, after I spent 6 months hating everyone and everything. And it worked, the therapy. Eventually, it took time, effort, a lot of ugly crying. She laughed. But yeah, it worked. Cole was quiet for a moment. Then, maybe I should try it. Try what? Therapy, forgiveness, all of it. He looked at his hands. I've been carrying a lot of anger for a long time. About my daughter, about the man who killed her, about everything that happened after. Did you ever find him, the man who killed her? Yeah, I found him. The words hung in the air. What happened? Cole didn't answer for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was distant. I had a choice. I could have killed him. Part of me wanted to. The part that had spent 5 years imagining exactly how it would feel to watch him die. But you didn't. No, I didn't. He looked up, meeting her eyes. Because I realized that killing him wouldn't bring her back. It wouldn't fill the hole. It would just make me into the kind of person she'd be ashamed of. So what did you do? I walked away, left him in an alley crying, begging for his life. And I walked away. He shook his head. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And the best. Megan reached out and took his hand. That's the bravest thing you have ever told me. It doesn't feel brave. It feels like weakness. Mercy isn't weakness. It's strength. She squeezed his hand. It takes everything you have to choose mercy when violence is so much easier. Cole looked at their intertwined fingers. How do you do it? See the best in everyone. I don't see the best. I see the whole picture. The good and the bad. The light and the dark. She smiled. Everyone has both, even you. Even me. Especially you, Dad. The phone call came at 7 p.m. Cole was in the hallway talking to Jax when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and froze. What is it? Jax asked. It's Victor. Victor's in custody. I know. Cole answered the call. Hello. A long silence. Then a voice tired, broken, nothing like the confident man who had held a knife to Megan's throat. Cole, it's Victor. I know who it is. How are you calling me? One phone call. They give you one phone call. A bitter laugh. I decided to use it on you. Why? Because I need to tell you something I should have said before everything went to hell. Cole's jaw tightened. I'm listening. I'm sorry. The words hung in the air. I'm sorry for what I did, for Danny, for the hit, for everything. Victor's voice cracked. I let my pride destroy everything. My club, my reputation, my relationship with my daughter. Sorry doesn't fix anything. I know, but it's all I have left. A pause. Tell the girl Megan, tell her I'm sorry. She didn't deserve any of this. Tell her yourself. I can't. I'm not brave enough. Victor laughed again. Funny, right? I've done terrible things, hurt people, killed people. But apologizing to a woman I nearly murdered, that's too hard. That's pathetic. Yeah, it is. A long breath. Take care of her, Cole. She's special. The kind of special you don't see very often. I know. And Cole, what? My daughter, Sarah. She's 17. Her mother's gone, and now I'm going to be gone for a long time. Maybe forever. Victor's voice was barely a whisper. Look out for her. Please, not because you owe me anything, but because she's innocent. She shouldn't have to pay for my sins. Cole was silent for a long moment. I'll think about it. That's more than I deserve. A pause. Goodbye, Cole. I don't expect forgiveness. But I hope one day you understand. The line went dead. Cole stood in the hallway staring at his phone, processing what had just happened. Jax appeared beside him. What did he want? Forgiveness. Did you give it to him? Cole put the phone away. I don't know, but I'm starting to understand why Megan did. The night before discharge, Megan couldn't sleep. She lay in her hospital bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of machines and the distant rumble of engines in the parking lot. 300 bikers. Still there. Still waiting. She didn't understand it. Didn't know if she ever would. All she'd done was react. Move. Follow an instinct she couldn't explain. And now her whole life had changed. The door opened softly. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Couldn't sleep either, Cole asked. No. He crossed the room and sat in his chair. Their chair. Tomorrow you leave. Yeah? Have you decided about the house? Megan had been thinking about it all day. The pros, the cons, the risks. Yes. And she turned to face him. I'll stay, but only until I'm fully recovered, and only if you promise me something. Anything. Promise me this isn't about debt. Promise me you're not doing this because you feel obligated. Megan, promise me. Cole was quiet for a moment. Then he stood, walked to the bed, and sat on the edge. Close enough that she could see every line on his face, every shadow in his eyes. I'm not doing this because I feel obligated. I'm doing this because... He stopped searching for words. Because you changed something in me. Something I thought was dead. What hope? The word was barely a whisper. Hope that the world isn't as dark as I thought. Hope that there are still people worth believing in, worth fighting for. Cole, you asked me once why I was doing all this, why I was sitting by your bed, standing guard, refusing to leave. He took her hand. This is why. Because you reminded me that I could still feel something, and I'm not ready to lose that. Megan felt tears burning in her eyes. She blinked them back. I'm not a saint. I'm not a hero. I'm just a waitress who made a stupid decision. You're wrong. Cole's voice was fierce. You're the bravest person I've ever met. And I don't care if you believe it or not, I believe it. And so do 300 men who've been sleeping in that parking lot for a week. She laughed through her tears. They really need to go home. They will, tomorrow, after they see you walk out of here. And then we figure out the rest together. She looked at him, this man she'd known for barely a week, but felt like she'd known forever. Together, together. She squeezed his hand. Okay? Okay. Okay, let's figure it out together. Cole smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes and transformed his whole face. Get some sleep, he said. Tomorrow's a big day. Will you stay? I'm not going anywhere. He moved back to his chair but didn't let go of her hand. And for the first time in days, Megan closed her eyes and slept. Really slept. Peacefully. Because she wasn't alone anymore. And she never would be again. The morning of discharge arrived with the sound of 300 engines. Megan woke to the rumble, that deep, steady growl that had become the soundtrack of her recovery. She lay still for a moment, letting the vibration wash over her, feeling it in her bones. Today was the day. Cole was already awake, sitting in his chair, watching her with eyes that looked more rested than they had in days. You're staring, she said. I'm appreciating. Same thing. Not even close. He stood and stretched. How do you feel? Megan pushed herself up, slowly testing her body. The pain was still there, a dull ache in her side, a tightness when she moved too fast, but it was manageable. Like I got stabbed and then spent a week in a hospital bed. So better. Better. The door opened and Dr. Nathan Cross walked in with a clipboard and a smile. Good morning. Ready to go home? More than ready. I figured. He flipped through pages. Everything looks good. The wound is healing nicely. No signs of infection. Your blood work came back clean. He looked up. You're one of the luckiest patients I've ever had. Lucky isn't the word I'd use. Maybe not, but medically speaking, you shouldn't be standing right now. That blade came within millimeters of your hepatic artery. If it had nicked that, he shook his head. Let's just say we wouldn't be having this conversation. Megan absorbed this information. She'd known it was close. She hadn't known how close. So what now? Now you rest. Take it easy for the next few weeks. No heavy lifting, no strenuous activity, no getting stabbed again. He smiled. I'll schedule a follow-up for next week. Other than that, you're free to go. Thank you, doctor, for everything. Thank you. He glanced at Cole, then back at her. I don't know what you did to earn that kind of loyalty, but whatever it is, keep doing it. The world needs more people like you. He walked out, leaving Megan and Cole alone. Ready? Cole asked. Megan looked around the room that had been her prison and her sanctuary for the past week. The flowers on the windowsill, the cards from strangers, the chair where Cole had kept his vigil. Yeah, she said. I'm ready. The wheelchair was non-negotiable. I can walk, Megan protested. Hospital policy, Patricia said firmly. Everyone leaves in a wheelchair, even stubborn former combat medics who think they're invincible. I don't think I'm invincible. Could have fooled me. Cole wheeled her through the corridors past nurses and doctors who stopped to watch. Some smiled, some nodded, a few applauded quietly. This is embarrassing, Megan muttered. This is respect. Learn to accept it. They reached the main lobby and Megan's breath caught in her throat. The place was packed. Hospital staff lined the walls. Patients had gathered near the windows. Family members stood in clusters, phones raised, cameras ready. And outside through the glass doors, she could see them. 300 bikers, standing beside their motorcycles, leather vests gleaming in the morning sun, faces turned toward the entrance, waiting. Cole, I know. This is too much. This is exactly enough. He wheeled her toward the doors. They hissed open and the sound hit her like a wave. Engines, hundreds of them, revving in perfect unison, creating a roar that shook the ground beneath her feet. Megan felt tears spring to her eyes. She blinked them back, but more came. Cole stopped the wheelchair at the top of the hospital steps. Jax appeared beside them, his weathered face split by a rare smile. Welcome back to the world, he said. Thanks, I think. The engines dropped to a low idle. The sudden quiet was almost more overwhelming than the noise. Megan looked out at the sea of faces. Bikers she'd met, bikers she hadn't, men who'd given blood for her, who'd stood guard for her, who'd waited through long nights and longer days for this moment. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, Cole replied. Just stand up. What? Stand up. Show them you're okay. Megan gripped the arms of the wheelchair and pushed herself to her feet. It hurt God, it hurt, but she did it anyway. And when she stood, the engines roared. 300 voices joining together in a sound that was part celebration, part salute, part something she couldn't name. Lucas appeared beside her, his eyes wet. You did it, sis. I didn't do anything. You survived. That's everything. She leaned on him as they walked down the steps. Cole flanked her other side, his hand ready to catch her if she stumbled. But she didn't stumble. She walked. Step by step down the hospital stairs past the rows of bikers who stood in silent reverence. Some had bandages on their arms, evidence of the blood they'd given. Others had signs that read "Thank you" and "Brave Heart." A few had tears in their eyes, quickly wiped away before anyone could see. Halfway down, a child's voice cut through the silence. Dad, are those the bad guys? Megan turned to see a little boy on his father's shoulders, pointing at the bikers with wide eyes. The father shook his head slowly. Not today, son, not today. At the bottom of the steps, Cole stopped. Close your eyes. What? Trust me. Close your eyes. Megan hesitated, then complied. She heard footsteps, heard the creak of leather, heard something being wheeled toward her. Okay, open them. She opened her eyes and gasped. A motorcycle stood before her, chrome gleaming, handlebars polished, black leather seat that looked soft as butter, and on the tank in elegant script, her name. Megan, she stared at it, speechless. It's yours, Cole said. Cole, I can't. You can and you will. He stepped closer. This bike was built by the men who stood guard outside your window. Every piece, every part, every detail, they did it themselves. But I don't even know how to ride. Then I'll teach you. Cole, this isn't charity, Megan. This isn't obligation. This is gratitude. He met her eyes. You saved my life. You showed my men what courage looks like. You reminded us all that there's still good in the world. He gestured at the bike. This is our way of saying thank you. Megan ran her hand along the chrome. It was warm from the sun, smooth beneath her fingers. I don't deserve this. You deserve everything. Cole took her hand. And we're going to spend the rest of our lives making sure you know it. Before she could respond, Jax appeared with a leather jacket. One more thing. He held it out to her. She took it confused and turned it over. On the back was a patch. Not the Hells Angels insignia, but something else, something new. A single word stitched in gold thread against black leather. Earned. That's not a membership patch, Cole explained. It's something better. It means you've proven yourself. That you belong with us even if you're not one of us. I don't know what to say. Say you'll wear it. Megan looked at the jacket, at the word that represented everything she'd been through, everything she'd survived. I'll wear it. She slipped the jacket on. It fit perfectly, and when she turned to face the crowd, 300 engines roared their approval. The ride through Cedar Falls was unlike anything Megan had ever experienced. She sat behind Cole on his bike, her arms wrapped around his waist, feeling the vibration of the engine through her whole body. 300 motorcycles followed behind them. A river of chrome and leather flowing through streets lined with onlookers. People stood on sidewalks holding signs, waving flags. Children pointed and cheered. Old men removed their hats in respect. The whole town had come out to see her. This is insane, Megan shouted over the wind. This is loyalty, Cole shouted back. Get used to it. They rode past the rusty nail bar, its windows dark, its doors closed. A for sale sign hung in the window. What happened? Megan asked. Owner couldn't handle the attention. Sold out and left town? Because of me. Because of what happened to you. This town is different now. People are different. Cole squeezed her hand. You changed things, Megan, whether you meant to or not. They continued through downtown, past stores and restaurants, in familiar landmarks that suddenly looked new. A banner stretched across Main Street. Welcome home, Megan. She felt tears streaming down her cheeks, carried away by the wind. This wasn't her home. She'd lived here for 2 years, but she'd never belonged, never connected, never felt like anything more than a stranger passing through. But now she belonged. Cole's house was exactly what she'd expected and nothing like she'd imagined. It sat on a hill outside town surrounded by trees and silence. A sprawling ranch house with a wraparound porch and a view that stretched for miles. The guest house was tucked behind the main property, small but cozy with its own entrance and its own privacy. "This is where you'll stay," Cole said, leading her inside bed. "Everything you needed here. Kitchen, bedroom, bathroom. I stocked the fridge this morning." "You stocked my fridge?" "I didn't know what you liked, so I got everything." Megan laughed. It hurt, but she laughed anyway. "You're ridiculous." "I prefer thorough." She walked through the small space, running her fingers along surfaces, taking it all in. It was simple, clean, comfortable. It was perfect. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen the view." He led her to the back door and opened it. The porch looked out over a valley green and golden in the afternoon light. In the distance, she could see the mountains, their peaks still touched with snow. "This is beautiful. This is home." Cole stood beside her, looking out at the view. "My daughter used to love this spot. She'd sit here for hours just watching the clouds." "Tell me about her." Cole was quiet for a long moment, then he spoke. "Her name was Emily. She was smart, funny, stubborn as hell." A sad smile. "She wanted to be a veterinarian. Loved animals more than people. Said they were easier to understand." "She sounds amazing." "She was." He took a breath. "When she died, I thought my life was over. Thought there was nothing left worth living for. I threw myself into the club, into the violence, into anything that would make me forget." "Did it work?" "For a while, but forgetting isn't the same as healing." He turned to look at her. "You're the first person in 10 years who's made me want to remember." "Cole, I'm not saying this to put pressure on you. I know you've been through hell. I know you need time to heal." He reached out and took her hand. "But I want you to know that whatever happens, whatever you decide, I'm grateful. For everything." Megan looked at their intertwined fingers, at this man who had started as a stranger and become something more. "I'm grateful too." Yeah. They stood together on the porch, watching the sun sink toward the mountains. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Megan felt at peace. The weeks that followed were quiet. Megan healed. Her body grew stronger, her wound closed, her nightmares faded. She spent her days reading, walking, learning to navigate this new life she'd fallen into. Cole kept his distance, just like he'd promised. He stayed in the main house, giving her space, giving her time. But he was always there when she needed him, a cup of coffee on her porch in the morning, a knock on her door when dinner was ready, a quiet presence that asked for nothing and gave everything. Lucas visited every weekend. He'd gotten a job at a local tech company, was making enough money to support himself, no longer needed his sister's help. "You should be proud," she told him one evening. "You did it." "We did it." He hugged her tight. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Yes, you could have." "Maybe, but I'm glad I didn't have to." The club members came and went. Jack stopped by regularly, bringing news from town, checking on her recovery. Road Dog brought his wife's cookies. Tiny brought flowers. They never asked for anything. Never expected anything. Just wanted to make sure she was okay. And slowly, gradually, Megan realized that this strange, unexpected family was exactly what she'd been looking for her whole life. 3 months after leaving the hospital, Megan made a decision. She found Cole on his porch watching the sunset, a beer in his hand. "Can I join you?" He moved over, making room. "Always." She sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "I've been thinking." Dangerous habit. "I'm serious." She took a breath. "I want to do something. Something meaningful. Something that makes a difference." "Like what?" "I don't know yet, but I keep thinking about Danny, about his mother, about all the people who do terrible things because they're desperate." Cole nodded slowly. "Go on." "What if I could help them, the desperate ones, the ones who feel like they have no options?" She turned to face him. "I have medical training. I have experience. And now I have resources." "Resources, you, the club, all of this." She gestured at the property around them. "What if we used it for something good? Really good?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then a smile spread across his face. "What did you have in mind?" "I don't know yet. Maybe a clinic, maybe a support center. Somewhere people can go when they're at their lowest. She met his eyes. Somewhere they can find hope. You want to build a place that gives people hope? I want to build a place that saves people. The way you saved me. Cole set down his beer and took her hands. Then let's do it. Really? Really, whatever you need, money, manpower, land. He squeezed her fingers. I told you you have everything I have. I meant it. Megan felt her heart swell. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. He pulled her closer. You're the one who's going to change the world. I don't want to change the world. Just this little corner of it. That's how it starts. So 6 months later, Second Wind opened its doors. The building had once been an abandoned church on the outskirts of Cedar Falls. Now it was something new, something better, a community center, a clinic, a place where anyone could come for help, no questions asked. Megan stood at the entrance on opening day, watching people file in. Single mothers, veterans, addicts trying to get clean, families who'd lost everything and were looking for a second chance. This is amazing, Lucas said, standing beside her. This is just the beginning. Cole appeared at her other side, his hand finding hers. You did it. We did it. No. He shook his head. This was your vision, your dream. We just helped make it real. A woman approached them holding a small child. Her eyes were red from crying, but she was smiling. Excuse me, are you Megan? That's me. I just wanted to say thank you. I've been on the streets for 3 months. I didn't know where to go, what to do. And then I heard about this place. She wiped her eyes. You're saving lives. You know that. Megan looked at the child in the woman's arms. Innocent, hopeful, full of possibility. We're trying. You're succeeding. The woman hugged her quick and fierce. Thank you. Thank you so much. She walked into the building and Megan watched her go. This is why, she said quietly. Why what? Why I jumped in front of that knife. Why any of this happened. She turned to Cole. Because moments like this make all the pain worth it. He pulled her into his arms and held her tight. I love you, he whispered. The words hit her like a wave. She pulled back, searching his face. What? I love you. I've loved you since the moment you opened your eyes in that hospital room and told me I was the wrong man to save. He cupped her face in his hands. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, Megan Sullivan. And I don't care if you're not ready to say it back. I just needed you to know. Megan felt tears streaming down her cheeks. I love you too. You don't have to, I love you too, you idiot. She laughed through her tears. I've loved you since you held my hand in that ambulance and told me I wasn't allowed to die. Cole's face broke into the biggest smile she'd ever seen. And then he kissed her, right there in front of the community center, in front of Lucas and Jax and all the bikers who'd come to celebrate. And when the engines roared in approval, Megan didn't pull away. She just kissed him harder. 1 year later, Megan stood on the porch of the main house, their house now watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and red. So much had changed. Second Wind had grown beyond anything she'd imagined. They had 3 locations now serving hundreds of families, a staff of 50, partnerships with hospitals and shelters across the state. Danny Voss had been released early for good behavior. His mother had died 2 months after his sentencing, but not before seeing her son turn his life around. He worked at Second Wind now, helping others avoid the mistakes he'd made. Victor Sloan had been sentenced to life without parole. His daughter Sarah had testified against him not out of revenge, but out of a desire to see justice done. She'd moved to Cedar Falls, lived with an aunt, visited Megan every month. The Hells Angels were different too. Still tough, still feared, but also respected. They'd become protectors of the community, volunteers at shelters, mentors to troubled youth. Cole had changed most of all. The anger that had defined him for so long was gone. In its place was something softer, something stronger. What are you thinking about? He appeared beside her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. Everything. Nothing. She took a cup. How different my life is now. Different good or different how? Different good. Very, very good. He wrapped his arm around her waist. I have something for you. You're always giving me things. This one's special. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Megan's heart stopped. Cole, don't panic. It's not what you think. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple, beautiful, a band of silver with a small diamond. It belonged to my daughter, he said quietly. She wanted to give it to someone special someday, someone who deserved it. Cole, I can't. You can, and you will. He took the ring from the box. This isn't a proposal, not yet. This is a promise. A promise that whatever happens, wherever we go together. Megan looked at the ring, at the love in his eyes, at the life they'd built from tragedy and hope. Together, she whispered. Together. He slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. And as the sun dipped below the mountains, casting everything in golden light, Megan realized that this was what healing looked like. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of something greater. Love, family, purpose, the things that made life worth living. That night, as they lay in bed, Megan's head on Cole's chest, she spoke the words she'd been holding inside. Thank you. For what? For finding me, for seeing me, for not giving up when I pushed you away. You didn't push that hard. She laughed. I pushed pretty hard. Yeah, well, he kissed the top of her head. I'm stubborn. That's one word for it. They lay in comfortable silence for a while. Then Cole spoke. Do you ever regret it? Jumping in front of that knife. Megan thought about the question, really thought about it, the pain, the fear, the long nights wondering if she'd made a mistake. And then she thought about everything else, the lives she'd saved, the community she'd built, the love she'd found. No, she said finally, not for 1 second. Even knowing what it would cost you, the cost was worth it. She lifted her head to look at him. Everything worth having costs something. The question is whether you're willing to pay the price. And you were. I am, every day, for the rest of my life. Cole pulled her closer. Then so am I. Outside, the distant sound of engines rumbled through the night. Not threatening, not urgent, just present. A reminder that they were never alone. That loyalty was real. That love was stronger than fear. And that some stories don't end when the engines stop. They echo, in courage, in sacrifice, in the quiet moments between heartbeats, forever. Megan Sullivan had walked into the Rusty Nail Bar as a waitress. She walked out as a legend, not because she'd done something extraordinary, but because she'd done something human. She'd seen someone in danger and she'd moved, without thinking, without hesitating, without asking what was in it for her. And in that single moment of selfless courage, she'd reminded 300 men and an entire town what it meant to be truly brave. Some people are born into greatness. Others have it thrust upon them. Megan Sullivan had it stabbed into her, and she wore the scar like a badge of honor, because that's what heroes do. They bleed, they break, and then they rise, stronger than before, ready for whatever comes next. This is Hard Tales, where loyalty is louder than fear, and every act of courage deserves to be heard. Thank you for listening.